Gravity Falls and Journal 3 belong to Alex Hirsch and Disney Channel. Please go support Gravity Falls and go buy Journal 3. Hello everybody, Raspberry Barrel here, and you know why we're here today. Time to read our next chapter of the Gravity Falls Journal 3. We left off with Ford just getting return of the journal and giving us his thoughts about the current Pines family. And now we're getting into some of the big lore about what was happening while Ford was gone those 30 years. Bum, bum, bum. So, let's begin. Please forgive me if I stutter, hesitate, or mispronounce anything, and for any noises in the background. The Rift. I was dismantling the portal for good and salvaging what parts I could for the future experiments when I made a horrifying discovery. Although I thought the dimensional gateway was permanently closed, I found at my feet a small tear between worlds, sparking and hovering a foot above the ground. In a panic, I scooped it up into a mason jar like it was a mosquito, and was able to create a temporary containment unit. It is just as I feared. Apparently, Stanley's reckless use of the machines overtaxed it and ripped a tear on the dimensional fabric, the same way an overheated oven might burn a hole in the kitchen linoleum. I had to contain it. Rift, a glittering window into the chaos I thought I'd escaped forever. If you hold it up to your ear, it sounds like mocking laughter. Bass. I could really use Fiddleford's help in stabilizing this. I wonder what's happened to him after all these years. When I asked, everybody abruptly changed the subject. Containment Dome, a house for the Rift. Admittedly, I was inspired by the snow globes in Stanley's gift shop. I must keep this away from Mabel, considering how many snow globes I saw her break in an hour. The path before me is clear. The world is safe from Cipher, as long as the Rift remains contained. But I fear my device will not be strong enough to hold these cosmic forces at bay forever. I must remain vigilant and stand watch, lest trouble arise again. And if I learned anything from a life of misfortune, it's that this is a burden I must shoulder alone. When I tried to share my burdens with Fiddleford, it destroyed our friendship and took its toll on his mental health. When I tried to share my burdens with my brother, he knocked me into the portal, separating me from my home for 30 years. And after all these years in exile, living across multiple dimensions, there are precious few beings that I feel comfortable calling a friend. What are the odds that in this one dimension I can find someone who understands me or what I've been through? No, the life before me is one of constant solitary vigilance against the unimaginable insanity that is Cipher. I brought him into this dimension, and I'll take him out if it's the last thing I do. I can't believe I'm writing this, but today I actually had fun. My grandnephew Dipper literally fell out of the sky and reminded me that even in dire circumstances, one must take joy in the simple pleasures of life. In this case, that simple pleasure is my favorite board game of all time, Dungeons, Dungeons, and More Dungeons by Ballway Games, copyright of 1974. Stanley always mocked me for my love of this game, and even some of my college friends called it girlfriend repellent. But apparently, Dipper shares my love of the good game. He's setting up the game as I write this. Wait till he sees my infinity-sided die. Infinite sides means infinite outcomes, but you'd be surprised how often you roll a 4. Available in infinite colors, but only 2 sizes. The thing has saved my life 3 times and endangered it around 20. Exists in a state of quantum uncertainties. Don't stare at it for too long unless you want a headache. One time, I rolled it, and the sky permanently changed color. Luckily, that was in the land of blind dimension, and so no one noticed, although their one-eyed king did seem annoyed. Obviously, it's too dangerous to use in a simple game of D&D and more D, but what could be the harm of just showing it to Dipper? Well, the harm in showing it to Dipper turned out to be quite large. During one of our games, my hot-headed brother got his hands on it and accidentally conjured this jerk, Probabilator the Wizard. Full name, Probabilator Pythagoras Desmilidos the 3.1415 claims that his staff is powered by pure math. Best I'm guessing it's just a lot of D batteries. Mainly makes annoying math jokes. He said algebra cadabra at one point, and everyone booed loudly. Believes that eating brains makes you smarter, which is a really dumb idea for someone who never shuts up about having a master's degree. His henchman is much too good looking to be pure elf. They are typically much shorter and way uglier. His ugly elf dad must have married up. Out of all the wizards I've ever encountered, that includes Blandalf the Boring from the Unmarkable Dimension, this one was the most insufferable. Weakness, blaster gun, crossed out, being outplayed. As formidable as Probabilator seemed, I'm proud to say that the Pines family was able to beat the wizard at his own game. Stan's contribution was, of course, to cheat our way to victory, but Mabel's disturbingly crossed out extraordinary imagination proved to be invaluable as well. When we needed a means to escape, she thought of something called a centaur, which is actually quite incredible if you don't pause to try to figure out how it eats. Among other things, don't think about it too hard. But after I fought ogres and elves alongside him, it was Dipper who impressed me the most. Pondering our adventure and the bond we shared over the game, I finally took it upon myself to read the entries he'd made in this journal. I don't mean this lightly when I say I was floored by what I saw. Instead of the aimless aggression of a typical adolescent, I discovered the same obsession with the supernatural as myself. Page after page, I read on as he navigated beasts, evaded villains, defeated ghosts twice, and even took down a gremlin. Sure, he's rough around the edges and prone to romantic distraction, but he possesses bravery, cleverness, imagination, and drive for beyond his years. More surprisingly still, he has a birth deformity, just like me. To say that I felt like I was reading about a younger version of myself is an understatement. I always thought I was the odd member of the family, but perhaps I truly have found a kind-hearted spirit. I presumed that there was no one in this earth who I could consider an ally and friend. I may have been wrong. Trusting in someone new is not coming easily. I told Dipper about the rift, but when he asked me where I've been for the past 30 years, I had no idea how to begin or what to reveal. I've been trying not to think about it, but perhaps writing about some of it here will help me get my thoughts in order. Perhaps it's time I finally reveal my journey. I remember those first moments after I was cast into the portal like it was yesterday. The sudden feeling of weightlessness, the helpless terror, knowing that I would soon face whatever mysterious horror had driven Fiddleford to madness, as I felt myself being sucked away from my home, a dimension I would come to learn is referred to as the multiverse as 46. I held my breath and accepted that this could be the end. As luck would have it, it was only the beginning. I found myself sucked through the door to the place Bill had designed the portal to access, a place he seemingly refers to as the Nightmare Realm, the dimension between all dimensions, the in-between space, gateway to other worlds, the king of nightmares. Swimming through a gravity-free sea of lightning and swirling colors, I reached into my pocket for a spare pair of glasses, always handy considering how often I break them, and found myself staring at, quite literally, a living nightmare. Bill's universe is not exactly a dimension, but rather a boiling, shifting, intergalactic foam between dimensions, a flawless, unstable crawl space between worlds that only the strangest and most unknowable beings call home. The portal closed behind me, and I found myself trapped there, possibly for eternity. Before I had a moment to properly panic over my fate, I realized that I was hovering before Bill, who perched on a bizarre throne made of optical illusions, flanked by an army of strange and shadowy beasts. "Look who decided to pay me a visit," he shrieked, his voice echoing through infinity. "Care for a game of intergalactic chess? This time you're the pawn." He snapped his fingers, and one of his beasts, a 60-foot-tall ball of fingers and teeth, let out a howl like a humpback whale and charged at me, fingers and teeth wiggling and gnashing. I managed to hide behind an asteroid field in the nick of time as the monstrosity passed me by, and I swam through the air in a panic as multiple beasts tore through the space rocks, searching for me. Fleeing for my life, I miraculously managed to make shelter in the crater of a large passing asteroid as the monsters swarmed by, hidden deep within the recess of the stony caverns. I could hear Bill's shrill voice. "Sixer wants to play hide and seek. First one to find him and bring him to me gets their own galaxy." It was followed by the manic laughter of creatures large and small, racing off to locate me. I was so crazed from fatigue and rage that my first impulse was to give myself up to Bill so I could curse him right in his face. Fortunately, before I could do anything crazy, I discovered that I was sharing my cave with a shivering family of intergalactic refugees. The refugees. Huddled around a strange glittering purple fire, these bandaged, war-torn creatures beckoned me near and told me their tale. Apparently, they were asteroid miners whose ship was sucked into a dimensional wormhole, and they found themselves lost here like me. When things in the multiverse go missing, they usually end up here. When I mentioned Bill, they shrieked and covered their ears, like I had said something obscene. Their leader, a hairy, snaggletooth mix between a guinea pig and a pirate, explained that my old muse is actually one of the most feared beings in the entire multiverse. Bill took over the nightmare realm as a hideout from him and his cronies, but because this place is lawless, without any consistent physics or rules, it is eventually fated to self-destruction. This is why Bill seeks a new, more stable dimension to take over, and a foolish mind willing to let him in. A foolish mind like mine. I explained to them my history with Bill and my desire to destroy him for what he's done. Although they were skeptical, the creatures took pity on me and offered help. They gave me one of their dimensional translators and some rations. Dimensional translator, model K127X. I asked them the odds of ever making my way home, and they said they were slim, so a plan began to form in my mind. I would travel from dimension to dimension, learning what I could about Bill, his weaknesses, his secrets. I'd gain my strength, bide my time, and once I was ready, I would return to the nightmare realm and destroy him once and for all. I might never see home again, but at least I could save the multiverse from his wrath and wreak vengeance for the life he stole from me. The creatures cheered me, shouting, "Praise the axolotl!" I have no idea what that means, and waved goodbye as I left their asteroid and swam to the nearest wormhole, casting my fate to the wind to discover what new worlds awaited me. My travels. So I embarked on a 30-year adventure, a perilous journey through the multiverse to learn what I could about Bill in the hopes of defeating him. In the process, I had many experiences that my younger self might have described as swashbuckling, if not for the constant nausea that accompanies dimensional hopping. It felt almost as though I lived 100 different lives in those dimensions. I traveled with bandits, learned to speak 13 languages, got in fist fight with a talking chair, and got tattoos with a tribe of octopus-armed warrior piglets. Why did I get this tattoo? Hey now, I'm an all-star. These tattoos rank among my most serious regrets. Let's just say I wear this turtleneck for a reason. I studied ancient texts, compared notes with scholars, dined with monsters, and was briefly made king of the finger dimension until a 7-fingered man showed up and I lost my status. Wanted. In the corner of the poster it says, "Rick was here." Do you get the reference? The rest of the poster says, "Return for bounty, armed and dangerous." Thanks to my quick wit and dimensional translator, I was able to talk my way into and out of food and shelter, although a number of dimensions considered me an outlaw to this day. Ironically, in the multiverse, I'm just as wanted as Stanley. But my crimes had a noble purpose. I only stole supplies to work on my quantum destabilizer, which proved to be one of the most difficult inventions I've ever worked on. To fully chronicle my adventures would take 10 volumes, but here's a catalog of some of the most outlandish dimensions I saw. The M dimension. No, my niece Mabel did not draw this. This is what it really looks like. Writing about this place after all these years has brought back to life the extreme frustration I felt while I was trapped here. The whole reality offended my ordered and scientific mind. I mean, how does it even make sense for a vacuum to be designed like this? If you think that's dumb, try looking at this alphabet. It's just the letter M 26 times. Why does a universe like this exist? Why did I have to spend time here? Why did they keep telling me to mave a wonderful mind? Even though I was feeling muicidal after just 10 minutes there, at least they were relatively kind to me, considering how strange I must have looked to them. Not like the people in the symbol dimension, those guys are. And then there's some symbols that I'm assuming are going to be a swear, but I don't know how to decode that. The do-over dimension. Also known as the yo-yo dimension and the go insane because nothing gets done dimension, the last name being the most accurate but the least poetic. This is a world where time moves both forward and backward in a seemingly random manner, so you may have a really bad week, but then get a chance to do it all over again. Or just as you complete high school, you may live backward all the way to kindergarten. The do-over dimension can move forward normally for really long spans of time, or yo-yo back and forth several times in one day. Professional timeline-ologists are like weathermen who try to accurately predict what the time will be like on any given day. As the old saying here goes, 1 step forward, infinite steps back, then 2.5 steps forward for no discernible reason. The main problem with the do-over dimension is that you remember every time you relive each section of your life. This may sound great at first. Who hasn't wanted a chance to do over some aspect of their life? But let's see how it actually plays out. Time 1. It's been 6 months since you moved into your first apartment, and things have gotten pretty messy, and now you've only got 2 hours to clean up before your new girlfriend sees the place for the first time. Result 1, she is horrified at the mess and leaves early. But time reverses. Time 2, it's been 5.5 months since you've moved into your first apartment, and things have gotten pretty messy, but you've got 2 weeks to clean up and redecorate before your new girlfriend sees the place for the first time. It's a lot of work, but you make the place into a palace. Result 2, she asks you to marry her. But time reverses. Time 3, it's only been 5 months since you've moved into your first apartment. It's as messy as before, and you remember how much work it was to get into shape last time. You're not really ready to go through all of that again. You do a basic cleanup and get some new curtains. Result 2, meh. But time reverses. Time 4, it's only been 1 day since you've moved into your first apartment. Everything is still in boxes and you don't even have a girlfriend yet. Result 4, you decide to leave everything in boxes and play video games all day. Ludercron 9, the gambling dimension. It's like the mob took over the entire galaxy, except there is no mob, because gambling is not only legal here, it's mandatory. Sign City, central governing authority of the gambling dimension. It lands on whatever planet wins the yearly lottery to host it. Code here that says, I won my infinity die here. Every aspect of life is left up to the chance in this dimension. Babies learn to roll dice before they learn to walk, and no one over the age of 5 goes anywhere without their lucky deck of cards. Even choosing your soulmate is left to Lady Luck. Luckily, the government is effective. The Galactic Senate meets at the track every Saturday to, crossed out, debate, bet on their favorite laws. Stan would have loved this place, but it just made me depressed. Although I had a good run in the gambling dimension, the dimensional bouncers ended up kicking me out for counting cards. What are the odds? My quest to defeat Bill led me to a strange world that I mistakenly believed to be his birthplace, the two-dimensional dimension. A residential neighborhood in the 2D world, aka Exile, as seen from above. Above being a direction that they know nothing about and does not exist. This drawing approximates how my 3D body intersected with their 2D universe. Looking at this picture, you might think me a god in their universe, but not so much. This is what the world of Exile looked like to me while I was there. A, B, C, D. My 3D eyes were worthless in their 2D world. There is no sky above them, and no sun to bathe them in directional light and create shadows. But here's how the X-Wilers would interpret the objects above. A equals circle, an upper-class circle. B equals a lovely triangle. C equals a building off in the distance. And D equals a leaf 5 inches from your face. I believe Bill came from a similar world that was mysteriously destroyed, but how? I didn't have much time to investigate. The X-Wilers considered me to be an irregular shape, which is vulgar in their society. I was unable to explain myself since my mouth was stuck outside their world, and I soon found myself under attack. Though small, the X-Wilers' bodies are razor sharp, and several hundreds of them began slicing into my head. Luckily, I was saved by one of the most extraordinary creatures I've ever encountered. And here is some binary code, and it just says C. And who was Stanford saved by? Well, that would be the Oracle. But we will get into that next chapter. Sorry guys, that's where we gotta end it off, but I hope you guys really enjoyed this chapter and everything we've learned so far about the 30 years Ford lived in the multiverse, basically. So thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time. Have a great rest of your day. Gravity Falls and Journal 3 belong to Alex Hirsch and Disney channel. Please go support Gravity Falls and go buy Journal 3. Bye-bye!